And so I'm just going to lay down some kick drums, and I'll open this MIDI clip so you can see what's going on. And there are my kicks. And now if I want a snare drum, for instance, I can just go and select my snare, put in some snares. And now I'm going to add some hi-hats. Now, if I'm in a live situation, it might make sense that I don't want to just press my hi-hat and then hear it. I want to hold down select and pick the hi-hat so that I don't get that sound of the hi-hat and it doesn't interfere with the music I'm making. And then I can just put them in just like that. Okay. And let me know if you need me to turn down the volume of the music at all so that we can hear things. Maybe I'll just do that just a little bit just to make sure everyone can hear everything. So the next controls I just want to show you in this particular layout are the step resolution controls. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So right now, by default, the 16th note will be highlighted. Okay? So that means each one of these pads is a 16th note. And I've put in an 8th note hi-hat pattern right here. Okay, so yeah, just check that out. Change the quality to 360, maybe that'll do the trick. Just like that. So if I go to 8th notes now, all of these 8th notes that I have here that are separated will move together because the resolution now is 16 and we're going to go to 8th. And you'll notice that now my 2-bar loop, which originally took up all 32 of these pads, 16 notes times 2, 32. When I go to 8th notes, now it only takes up the first 2 rows because we're in the 8th note resolution. And if you were to look at my kick drum pattern, again, that's changed as I go back and forth, and same with the snare. So this can be handy if you want to work in different ways. Like for instance, something I like to do once in a while is maybe bring in like some fast hi-hats every now and then. Something like that. And you can do that. I switched to 30-second notes. And you can get your pattern sounding a little bit different that way. So I'm going to go back to 16th notes. That's pretty much this particular layout. I'm going to stop this clip for a minute. That's how this layout works. This is kind of the traditional way we make beats on Push, you know, the first way you might start. Let me take you now through some of the different layouts, and we can get to those with the layout button. So when I press layout, I get my 16 velocities, and it'll show, you'll see it up here on the Push. And then I can also get my 64 pads, and I go back to my loop selector. I'm going to start out with the 64 pads just because it's a little bit simpler. It's basically just instead of having a sequence up here and a bar up here, I just get all my pads laid out across 64 pads. So whereas before I only got this little quadrant of playing area, now I get the whole 64 pads. And this can be really fun once you get a larger drum rack that has all kinds of things going on. I see I got a question. How do you see a drum note layout and not keyboard layout in live? Like in Machine, is there a layout view in live that shows drum notes? I guess you're talking about, this is from Bri-Fi, the question. I think maybe you're talking about the MIDI editor, the piano roll over here. Is there a layout view that shows drum notes not on the keyboard? I think that's what you're talking about. We've got the fold button. That might be what you want to look into, is just clicking the fold button. When we have fold selected, it will only show us the notes that are available. When we turn that off, we now see the actual notes that would be on a MIDI keyboard. And this goes all the way up to C8, all the way down to C-2. And the nice thing about when you have a drum rack is it gives you the names of the pads. So this corresponds with what I have here in my drum rack. So for instance, deep kick night would be shown here. Kick deep night. So the names correspond. Okay. So let me go back into here. So this is the 64 pad mode. Super useful when you got like some melodic components and you've got some beats. You can really do some nice things with the finger drumming. But let's go now to the 16 velocities, which is a pretty cool setup, and it's a new one to Live 9.7, I believe. And what this does is it changes the bottom right quadrant. Instead of having the loop selector, now we have 16 velocities. So when we get a drum, like this snare for instance, once it's selected, all of these 16 pads will play back a snare at different velocities. So this is quiet, and it gets louder and louder at higher velocities. So you can hear the difference from here to here. And this has nothing to do with how hard I hit the pad, as it would here. These are fixed velocities right here. So this can be like really nice when you're doing like a build up or something, and you can build things up, or especially on the hi-hats, I think you can play your hi-hats like this and get some nice variety in your velocities, just like that.